As we are now just a couple weeks away from the 2025 college football season, I want to talk about some teams that I think are personally a little bit overrated. The preseason AP Top 25 poll was recently released, and I think there are a handful of teams that are getting too much hype or are slightly overrated for this season, and I'm going to talk about 10 examples of that. Whenever you say anything even remotely negative on YouTube, everybody assumes you're a hater or absolutely assumes the worst about you. So to clarify, I don't think any of these teams are necessarily going to be bad. It's nothing against the team. It's nothing against the players. It's just the fact that maybe, in my opinion, they're getting a little bit too much hype in the preseason. But I'll quit my rambling and we'll go ahead and get started with the video. But before that, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the 10 most overrated teams for the 2025 college football season. So coming in at number 10 for me is the UNLV Rebels. Also, this list is in no particular order, but in my opinion, I don't know why UNLV is getting so much hype. Historically, the Rebels have not been very good, and the coach that rebuilt them, Barry Odom, is now over at Purdue. They lost a lot of key players from last year, including Hajj Malik Williams and Ricky White, and I think essentially they're just hoping to put a bunch of misfits together and make things work. They have a ton of unique players like Justin Flo, the former 5-star, you'll have JoJo Earl, a receiver from TCU, and then a quarterback battle between Alex Orji from Michigan and Anthony Colandrea from Virginia. They also add in first-year head coach Dan Mullen, and while they are extremely exciting, I'm not necessarily sure why they are getting votes to be ranked. Obviously, it's just because they were successful last year, have some fun players, a big-name coach, and are located in Vegas. I'm not sure what makes them that much different than some of the other top-tier teams in the Mountain West that are not getting any attention at all. I'm sure UNLV will have a good season, though. At number 9, we're to go over to the SEC and talk about the Tennessee Volunteer. I'm one of the biggest fans of Josh Heupel and what he's done, and I've always had a soft spot for the Vols, but I'm honestly not sure if they're really going to be that good this year. Nico ended up transferring over to UCLA, so they have to find a new quarterback, and then skill players like Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy, and Dylan Sampson are all gone, and then a couple of key defensive linemen. Sure, they got Joey Aguilar, who was solid at Appalachian State, but they still have to find a new starting running back, have to find a couple of new receivers, and I think one of them is in trouble right now, and then have a couple new players to fill in on the defensive line. I'm not saying Tennessee is going to be bad, but on paper, they lost a lot of talented players, and the only reason they're getting hype is because we're just banking on them replenishing it. I think the season's mostly going to depend on how good Joey Aguilar is, but for now, I guess at number 24 it's not that bad, but we'll have to wait and see how the Volunteers do. Last year, Boise State was the team in the group of 5 that made it to the college football playoff, and most of that was on the back of their superstar running back, Ashton Jeanty. You guys all know his story by now, but this guy was so good that he almost won the Heisman last year, and I think he probably should have, and now Boise State's going to have to figure out what life without him looks like. I'm not saying they're going to completely fall off, but for the most part, it really felt like Ashton Jeanty was that team. Still though, Boise State has one of the best cultures of any group of 5 school, they got an influx of highly talented players, and they probably should be fine. But for now, I think there are definitely some things for Boise State to figure out, and there is a real chance they do fall off this season. One of the more interesting teams on the list is over in the Big 12, and that will be the Utah Utes. Under head coach Kyle Whittingham, the Utes have been one of the most consistent programs in all of college football, typically doing more with less, and that's why they're getting a ton of preseason hype. I've even seen some people pick the Utes to win the Big 12 this year, and for me, it's somewhat interesting. Last year, Utah failed to make a bowl game, had a lot of problems at the quarterback spot, and just overall things were not clicking for them in their first year in the Big 12. To assume that you can just flip a switch and have it all change to me is a little bit ridiculous, but I can see why people are hyping them up. They return a couple of big-time offensive line starters, they got a really exciting quarterback from New Mexico in Devon Dampier, they always have a good defense, and typically they end up bouncing back, so that's why Utah's getting hype, but on paper, they didn't go to a bowl game last year, they have a lot of new starters, a new offensive system, and they are playing in a really good Big 12 that's loaded top to bottom. Sure, I see why Utah is getting the hype, but until the product hits the field, to me they're going to be a bit overrated. Coming in at number 5, we have another team from the Big 12, and that will be the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Currently, the Red Raiders are ranked number 23 for the 2025 college football season, and while I think they're fine, I think they are a bit overrated at the moment. They bring back Baron Morton, one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the Big 12, but besides that, there's a lot to replace. Both Taj Brooks and Josh Kelly are now off to the NFL, and even with those guys last year, Tech still only managed to win 8 games. They were not exactly a juggernaut last year, but as I said, they're hoping that some of these transfer pieces come in and do well, as they got one of the top transfer portal hauls in the country. They have a ton of money flowing into the program through NIL, and just in general, there's a lot of momentum surrounding the Red Raiders, but it doesn't mean, in my opinion, they're not a bit overrated. Obviously, the playing will do the talking, but I would personally probably have them ranked about 30th in the country instead of 23rd, but again, what the heck do I know? Hopefully my own fans don't turn on me with this next take, but I think my Missouri Tigers are a bit overrated going into the 2025 season. What Elijah Drinkwitz has accomplished the last 2 seasons at Mizzou is unprecedented, but in my opinion, his best job is going to have to come this year. After having Brady Cook and Luther Burden lead the way for them the last 2 years, the Tigers have to replace a lot of firepower on offense, as they have a quarterback battle going on between Sam Horn and Bo Prabula, and I'm not sure how good either of those guys even are. Ahmad Hardy was a huge pickup from Yale Monroe at the running back spot, and at the receiver spot they have some talented players, but it's not that easy to replace 2 NFL talents in Theo Weiss and Luther Burden, so things are just going to have to come together for them. The offensive line is also going to be interesting to watch, but Mizzou has some things going for them. They have a good defense, they have a coaching staff that's now been established, and they have an easy schedule. The Tigers might have the easiest schedule in the SEC in my opinion, so while they might win 9 or 10 games this year, some of that could be a byproduct of a pretty lousy schedule. Again, I'm a diehard Mizzou fan, so I say this with no hate. I did a video talking about the preseason top 25 poll a couple of days ago, and someone made a couple of good points in the comment section. I thought there was a good reason why Michigan was ranked so highly going into this year, but then as I sort of examined it a little bit more, I'm not sure why I think that. They lost their top 2 running backs, they have a true freshman starting at quarterback, they still haven't figured out who will be their top receiver, they lost their top playmaker in Colston Loveland, have a ton of players on defense they have to replace, and had a somewhat underwhelming transfer portal haul. Absolutely no hate against Michigan, but those big wins against Ohio State and Alabama might be inflating them a little bit right now. Sure, they were really good in those 2 games last year, and definitely finished the 2024 season on a strong note, but to jump all the way up to that high in the rankings is a little bit interesting to me. I think there's a good chance that Michigan's going to have a really good season, but for now on paper, I think they are a bit overrated. One of the top teams that's receiving a lot of votes to be ranked in this year's AP poll without actually making it on the list is the BYU Cougars. Last year, BYU had a breakout season in their second year in the Big 12, and that was led by their quarterback Jake Retzloff. They also obviously had a couple of other key pieces, but BYU is sort of just here because they're BYU. They typically have a good culture, tend to do more with less, and they had a good season last year, so I think they're sort of being inflated. I cannot pretend to be a total expert on BYU football by any means, but there aren't really many notable names on their roster this season, and they got thrown for a major loop when Jake Retzloff left the program and went to Tulane. Their new starting quarterback is a guy that pretty much nobody knows of, and that's McKay Hillstead, and his only starting experience comes at Utah State. He's never started for a Power 5 team, BYU lost some key pieces from last year, and for now I don't necessarily know why they should be even close to ranked. Again, it's mostly a culture thing and how they did last year, and maybe I'll eat my words, but for now I think BYU is overrated this year. For our second to last team, we're going to talk about the Illinois Fighting Illini. I got a little bit of flack for saying they were overrated in my preseason top 25 reaction video, and I still stand by it. I think they obviously deserve to be ranked as they return a ton of starters from last year's team, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a high ceiling. Their top offensive playmaker last year was their wide receiver Pat Bryant Jr., who's now off to the NFL, and I personally also like Josh McCray at running back a lot. Illinois is a decent team that returns a lot from last year, but that's just sort of it. I don't think they have a player on their team that necessarily makes them elite. I don't know if they'll make a college football playoff run, and we also don't necessarily know which Brett Bielema is going to show up. It seems like he has a good season and follows it up with a bad season, so we'll just have to wait and see. I think Illinois deserves to be ranked in the top 25 to start out the year, but in my opinion, they are a bit overrated at the current moment. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks. They are a team that's getting a ton of hype based on last season and a couple of their key players, as they ended up getting a couple of big wins last year and sort of turned everything on in the back half of the season. They returned quarterback Lenora Sellers, who some believe is the best in the SEC and potentially the most exciting quarterback in America. They also have Nick Harbor, who are still waiting to break out, and some super talented young defensive linemen, but to me, they're just a bit overrated at the moment. We'll have to see how Lenora Sellers can do over a full season. We'll see who emerges as the top receiver for them. Rashul Faison may not even be eligible to play, and they have a pretty difficult schedule. But again, what do I know? There's absolutely no hate involved in any of this, but at the current moment, I think some of these teams are a little bit overrated, and I'd like to see them on the field before they continue to get more attention. I guarantee you probably every one of them is going to prove me wrong, but what do you guys think? What do you think of my list of overrated teams? Who in your opinion is the most overrated team? And then what's an underrated team I could include in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.